Anxiety is in the mind, but so is peace. He points to Diogenes, the ancient Greek philosopher, as someone who found contentment by focusing on who he was, not what he had. True self-knowledge, Howard insists, is the foundation for everything else. For insight, for real satisfaction.
Okay, let's shift to desire and attachment. Huge forces in our lives. What's the mystical view here?
Well, Howard observes that most people try to satisfy inner needs with outer things, possessions, relationships, achievements, and inevitably they get hurt when those outer things don't deliver or disappear.
The classic cycle of seeking and disappointment.
Right. But he clarifies, mysticism isn't about crushing all desire. It's about learning to tell the difference between healthy desires, ones that come from life itself, and unhealthy ones, those rooted in the false self, the ego.
Okay, so how do you tell the difference? Healthy versus unhealthy desire.
He suggests false desires often feel painful, compulsive, nervous. There's an anxiety attached to them, and they often lead to anger or frustration when they're blocked. They're needy.
And healthy desires.
They feel more natural, less frantic. The true self, he argues, isn't desperate or needy because it's already complete. It doesn't have these gaping holes the false self tries to fill externally.
He uses vanity as an example, right?
Yes, perfect example. Vanity is this constant, painful craving for external approval, for attention, for flattery. It feeds the false self's endless appetite. Think about how much anxiety is tied up in just wanting people to think well of us.
Yeah, a lot.
True freedom comes, he says, when we're no longer yanked around by these ego-driven desires and the fears that go with them. Pain arises when our desire for how things should be clashes with how things are.
Okay. This leads towards the idea of contacting a higher power and, maybe controversially, abandoning human effort. What does he mean by that? It sounds passive.
It can sound that way, but it's more nuanced. First, he says terms like higher power, truth, reality. They're just labels for the same source of help. The word isn't the thing itself.
Right.
The key insight is that real power doesn't come from our ego trying to force things, from our own limited strength.
Yeah.
It comes from recognizing our helplessness in certain areas, recognizing the ego's limits, and becoming willing to sort of surrender to a greater intelligence or flow.
So it's not about giving up, but giving up the ego's control.
Precisely. Willingness to change direction, to listen for a deeper guidance. He uses an analogy, a soldier between two headquarters.
Ah, yes, I remember that.
One is the genuine inner guidance from the true self. The other is the counterfeit commands from the ego. Our well-being depends on which signals we listen to.
Makes sense.
And he says, the less you strain your mind with the ego's agenda planning, worrying, demanding, manipulating, the more open you become to this higher power, this deeper intuition. It's a shift from feeling like you have to push the river to being carried by the current. From driven to carried.
Driven to carried. I like that. Okay, let's talk about suffering and illusion. Why do we suffer from this perspective?
Howard suggests suffering is basically a clash. It's when the false self comes face to face with something it really doesn't want to see or accept. It's a resistance against truth, against reality as it is.
So suffering is like friction.
Yeah, friction against reality. He sees it almost as nature's way of helping us wake up, of forcing us to confront our illusions. Even the discomfort we feel when encountering new ideas that challenge our old beliefs, that's a form of this resistance, the suffering.
So unhappiness isn't just bad luck, it's a message.
Exactly, a message that we're living out of sync with our true original nature. And crucially, he points out, the false self cannot fix worry. It only causes worry. It's the source of the problem, not the solution.
So chasing external things for happiness won't work.
Nope. Ultimate happiness, he says, follows self-discovery. It's an inside job, start to finish.
Which connects to living in the present moment. A theme in many traditions. Howard links this to overcoming fear, too.
Yes, he really hammers this home. The present moment is all there is, right now. Yesterday is just memory, tomorrow is just anticipation. They don't exist except in our minds.
So focusing on the now changes things.
Dramatically. He says consciously confining yourself to the present moment transforms the day. It cuts off anxiety about the future at the root.
And the link to fear. How does being present help with fear?
Fear, again, comes from that core misidentification.
Yeah.
Mistaking the false self for who you really are. That false self feels small, vulnerable, threatened. This mistaken identity gives imaginary power to external things, to what might happen. He says the chains holding us are made of paper. Their power is only what we give them through belief and fear.
So seeing clearly in the present dissolves that fear.
Exactly. Seeing things as they actually are right now, not as the fearful mind imagines them. He also says the root of much fear is wanting something from others, approval, love, security. When you find the true self within, those compulsive needs lessen, and so does the fear tied to them.
He has that exercise too, doesn't he? Silently talking to things.
Yeah, it's powerful. Silently tell people or situations that seem to have power over you, no, I will not give you power over me. It's an assertion of your true independence. His ultimate point is, freedom isn't something you achieve, it's your actual state right now. You just need the spiritual discernment to realize it.
Okay, so this points towards inner transformation being the key, leading to self-reliance, not just going through religious motions.
Absolutely. True change is inward. It's about actually living by these new principles. Self-awareness, dropping worry, listening to that inner voice.
It's choice then.
A conscious choice. He says you have to wish for this newness, this true self, more than anything else, more than comfort, more than approval, more than familiar misery.
He uses that mountain analogy.
Yes, work towards the mountain. The true self, don't keep staring back at the desert, the false self in the past. Keep your focus on where you're going.
And where does the energy for this come from? It sounds demanding.
From within, he insists. True energy, sustainable energy, flows from your connection to your true self, not from artificial stimulants or chasing external validation. And crucially, you need to please your real self first. Get your own house in order internally. That's where you find the genuine strength and wisdom to actually help others properly.
It's like putting on your own oxygen mask first.
Exactly. He urges us to make the move internally from the rundown shack of the false self to the rich valley of the true self.
So if we make this inner shift, how does it affect our relationships? How do we relate to others, find love from this true self place?
Well, he says true love actually aids another person's development, their awakening, even if they react badly at first.
That's a high bar.
It is. And he offers this mystical perspective. Fundamentally, there's no real separation between you and another. So hurting them is hurting yourself. Helping them is helping yourself.
What about all the difficult stuff? Deception, getting hurt, expectations.
When you're free from the ego's neediness towards others, you're less likely to be deceived or feel hurt by their actions. Understanding others flows directly from understanding yourself.
So those difficult interactions become data.
Kind of. Opportunities to see people as they really are, not through your own filters or idealized images. Real peace in relationships, he says, comes when you abolish your demands on others. Let them be who they are.
Can an awakened person love someone who isn't?
He thinks so. A self-aware person can genuinely love a non-aware person, but the reverse is difficult. Two people operating purely from the false self, their love is usually based on mutual need, projection, conditions.
It's not the real thing.
Not according to Howard. Genuine love, real affection, grows naturally as we awaken, because the true self is love. It's not something it does, it's what it is. Lasting love infills those living from that authentic place.
You're nearly there. Let's talk about happiness and meaning. The big questions. What's the mystical take?
Simple, yet profound. Happiness is an inner state. It's completely unrelated to what's happening outside.
Independent of circumstances.
Totally. And the present moment, again, holds perfect freedom, perfect potential for happiness right now. If you have an unhappy experience with someone, the question isn't why did they do that, but why did I react with pain? Look inward.
And meaning. What about finding purpose?
He suggests a lot of what we call purposeful activity is actually just running away. Meaningless activities designed to help us forget the unwanted, uncomfortable, false self.
Distraction.
Yeah. True peace comes from a kind of spiritual self-forgetfulness, forgetting the false self. True happiness is simply joy in the truth, joy in reality as it is. He encourages questioning everything you think you know about yourself. That questioning can crack open the door to discovering who you really are, which is entirely different. Happiness, he says, is a mark of the cosmic sense. There's no how-to manual for enjoying yourself. You just do it spontaneously when you're aligned.
All right. Finally, the ongoing process. This isn't a one-and-done deal, right? Awakening is a path, not just a destination.
Definitely not. Howard acknowledges that shocks, difficulties, suffering, they often serve as the initial wake-up calls. They force us to see that the way we've been living isn't working.
Awareness of the problem comes first.
Yes. Awareness of an unhappy state precedes deliverance. And expect resistance. When you encounter these truths, the false self will fight back. You'll feel resistance.
What do you do with that resistance?
Observe it. See it clearly, just like any other manifestation of the false self. Observing your resistance weakens it. Remember, happiness comes from living from the true self.
Any other tips for the journey?
He mentions not taking responsibility for other people's mistakes. That's part of their own path. And maybe share these deeper truths only with people who show genuine interest. Don't try to force it on anyone. As your self-awareness grows, so will your skill in navigating relationships naturally.
And keep questioning.
Absolutely. Dare to think for yourself. Question assumptions, especially your own. And ultimately, the only way to conquer fear is to face what you fear with awareness.
Wow. Okay, this has been a really, really rich, deep dive into Vernon Howard's The Mystic Path to Cosmic Power. It definitely offers a powerful, if challenging, perspective centered on this false self, true self distinction.
It really does. And what strikes me is how practical he insists is. It's not just abstract ideas. It's about the daily, moment-to-moment practice of self-observation, understanding your emotions, shifting your entire perspective.
Yeah, that recurring theme. Inner work is the foundation for outer change and for finding a peace that isn't dependent on everything going perfectly outside.
Exactly. It really invites you, the listener, to take these ideas and just sit with them, see how they resonate with your own life, your own challenges.
So perhaps a final thought for you to mull over. What aspects of your own false self, that inner critic, that bundle of habits and anxieties, might be blocking your view of your deeper true self? What's obscuring the peace and happiness that Howard says is already there? And maybe what's just one small act of impartial self-observation you could try today, just to begin peeling back a layer and seeing what's underneath?
A powerful question to carry with you.
Indeed. We really encourage you to explore these concepts further if they resonate, and consider what other deep dives might support your journey. Thanks for joining us.